Well, the number one reason is that it gives our whole certification process and program the backbone that's needed for accreditation. These builder eligibility requirements set the designated level of experience in order to even take the test. And they provide a means identifying builders in our industry that have met a standard of achievement. This allows us to be on solid ground if we're challenged. If the certification of a builder is in the specs of a project, it gives us the minimums established to be able to back up the whole program. It starts with having the current handbook, making sure that it is for either the track, field, or tennis. The current handbook that's on the website gives you the guidelines that you'll need to gather the information to complete the application package. You'll also need a listing of all your past projects that you have worked on yourself and the references for each. You'll need accurate information as to your specific degree of involvement in each project, and you'll need the current contact information with the phone number for each of the listed project references who can verify you as an individual and your degree of involvement on that specific project. Yes, and the instructions you have on the screen, which are on the Excel spreadsheet, are complemented by the handbook instructions. They kind of go hand in hand. The handbook gives you maybe a little more insight. This is a great outline for the instructions here, but they should be used hand in hand.
Great.
And basically, as you see here, this one is the Field Builder Certification Spreadsheet instructions, very similar for the track and the tennis division instructions. And the main thing is to read and follow carefully this set of instructions along with a handbook set of instructions with special attention paid to the eligibility spreadsheet instructions that we're going to get into shortly. And then I always say reread it again. So basically, if you follow these instructions, it'll make the process easier. The job verification form has 3 references from 3 different companies who basically are attesting to the fact that you work in the sports industry. And these can be colleagues, employers, vendors, customers, and they are going to be signing for you. And one thing I'll note is this verification form is a little different than it used to be. So you want to make sure you have the current job verification form, and that is emphasis on 3 different companies. We used to get the verification form all signed by the same members of the same company, and the rules have been changed. So this looks like you have the current job verification form on the screen. So the job list form that you show here on the screen really goes hand in hand with the eligibility spreadsheet that we'll be seeing next. This job list form, not to be confused with the job verification form, but this job list form will, as you put in, number 1, what the project is that you worked on, it'll populate over to the eligibility spreadsheet. So you'll have a list of every project that you worked on, the date the project was completed, the name of the reference, and a phone number for that project reference. And this will allow me to, or whoever is the reviewer, to verify your level of involvement in that particular project. And again, this one is the Field Builders certification spreadsheet, but it looks very similar for the track and for the tennis court. You'll see a note up in the left-hand corner that at least 50% of the work must be within the last 3 years. Under job name, number 1, 2, 3, 4 will correspond directly and exactly to the job list form, so that they're in the same order, one populates to the next, and you fill in these point totals under each category, and it does the math for you if you're using this Excel spreadsheet. You do have the option to do this manually. If you don't want to use a computer Excel spreadsheet and you want to do it manually, this can be printed out and you can do the math yourself. But I think the majority of people these days are taking advantage of the Excel spreadsheet. So basically, this is the crux of the application information that we need to see to verify that you have the 100 eligibility points at least to be able to take the test. I'll start with this eligibility spreadsheet. Number 1, there are maximum and minimums that are shown in the handbook for each category. So up under project planning that we're looking at now, there's a minimum number of points you have to achieve and there's a maximum. You don't need to worry too much about exceeding the maximum, but I won't be able to count, if you go over the maximum, we won't be able to count that toward your 100-point total. It's okay to have more than 100 points, but you've got to meet the minimums in each category. So that's one of the mistakes that's often not caught, is that you fail to meet the minimum in each category, or you get a whole bunch of points in one category and I can't add it toward your 100-point total once you've exceeded the maximum. We already mentioned that 50% of the 100 points must be within the last 3 years. That's a common mistake. It has to be completed projects only. The job list form for the projects have to match exactly to this eligibility. If you're doing it manually, you have to line them up exactly. And the other common mistake that people make is using old forms. You want to use the current forms that are on the website. Well, I think in order to prepare well for this exam, you want to get yourself organized, number 1. It's a time management thing when you go in to take the test itself. So organization is critical so that you're efficient. You want to think about this spreadsheet that you see right here is a guideline for the test itself. So there's going to be questions on project planning, project administration, site, subgrade, and base work, field surfacing and marking, and maintenance. And similar with the track, tennis, this outline on the eligibility spreadsheet gives you a guideline or a test blueprint. And they even call it that in the track and tennis handbook, that is, I think it's in Appendix B, that it is a test blueprint. So you want to look over this before you take the test. It'll give you an idea where the questions are coming from. Another tip is to take the sample questions that are in the handbook. It gives you the answers after you take them. It explains how they got to the answers. I think that's a very helpful to at least have some pretty good idea of what to expect. Make sure you refamiliarize yourself with the specific reference materials that you're allowed to bring in. On the fields and the track test, you can bring in reference materials. On the tennis, you cannot. So on tennis, you need to get yourself familiarized with the tennis manual and make sure that you're pretty well versed in taking the test without having reference material. On the track side and the field side, you can bring in reference materials. I suggest you limit it to the suggested ones that are in the handbook and that you are familiar with those, and tab them or whatever makes you feel comfortable. But the number one best reference is our own manual, the ASBA manuals for track, fields, and tennis. And the last thing I would note is brush up on your basic math skills. Area equals length times width, area of a circle, volume calculations, conversions of metric to English and English to metric, especially in the track division. Those basic math skills will come in handy. And I think by taking the sample questions, you'll understand that. So those are the main tips, I think, to take the test.